afternoon, everybody. Space, the final frontier. These are the continuing voyages of USS Datahog. His continuing mission to get more data, to store more things, to globally stuff it where it's never been stuffed before. Now, you probably wonder what that means. Well, let's take a look at it for a sec. Well, because today we're going to be talking about tape backup technology. And also we can talk about another kind of issue which is very common with a lot of people in the world today. We acquire stuff, lots of stuff. Now let's talk about the physical, tangible stuff, then we'll talk about the intangible. The average person, from the day they're born to the day they're in the ground, is going to probably be acquiring a lot of things. For example, you might have some of your childhood books and a couple of your stuffed animals, like you see around me here. Big stuffed cats, and maybe your Lego collection or other toys. You may have kept a few of them. It turns out that we seem to like to collect a lot of stuff over the years. Sometimes to the point where we get so much stuff that we basically have no place to put it. So we start having to invest in storage lockers to store it all. Because we just love to collect, but unfortunately we don't necessarily on a regular basis like to throw away. The same is true with the computers. I have over 600 gigabytes of data scattered among many computers in here, many hard drives, and to me, while there are some things that are duplicated between machines, the worst offenders are the shareware programs. These programs have registration keys, and you gotta keep the printouts of the keys, at least when it comes time to reactivate the program. It's just a matter of re-entering the keys. So obviously you have a printout of, at least I hope you do. Well, if you don't, that's a pretty big concern right there, but let's assume at least you have your registration information printed out somewhere, so that if you did erase all the code or lost it because of a computer crash, you can still recover it. Because that's the problem with computers. Okay, just like the pack rat. Let's say something happens. Let's say your business gets flooded out, or even your home, or you have a fire, or some other natural disaster, or man-made disaster takes everything and wipes it clean out. How are you going to recover it? Well, let's take a look at a couple ideas, and that's what we're going to do today. We are going to keep this simple because I don't want to get into all the nitty-gritty of every single potential way to have a huge amount of data, like many people. And in the last few years, there has been a lot of people insisting on different type of backup strategies, and we're going to just briefly discuss each of them. We're not going to go into detail on the ins and outs of them until we get done with the general types of backup. There are three major ones, actually four, is the cloud, backup to removable tape, and solid state devices. I'm going to include this in the same category just because they're both removable in this case. Backup to optical devices such as CDs and Blu-rays, and of course backup to magnetic tape. Now, in this day and age, it seems that the first three are the most popular, especially the first one. But as we found out from Mega Upload, if you're backing up to an off-site storage and that company goes tits up for whatever reason, your data is gone. Okay? You're never going to get it back unless you happen to knowing about in advance so you could prepare to retrieve your data. Okay, it also takes the longest to recover your data files too, because it takes me approximately a half hour to an hour. I think it's about an hour. I'm going to just say an hour just to make the math easy. Okay, it might, because depending on the transfer rate, it could take longer. For a single layer DVD 4 gigabyte image, it takes me about an hour. Now, to do with 600 gigabytes, you don't have to be no rocket scientist to figure this out. 600 gigabytes versus 4 gigabytes, okay? So just take 600 divided by 4 and you get 150 DVDs. Now, if each one takes an hour, that means it's going to take, at worst, it could take as long as 150 hours to do a full recovery of that image, okay? That's pretty bad. And that's assuming that nothing goes wrong with your connection and that everything is, there. So that takes a long time. It's not necessarily secure because, as people who had accounts that were registered users of Mega Upload learned, there's no guarantee your company's there. Same thing with LavaBit, the secured mail service. The owner decided to pull the plug. The difference was he did refund his customers money, but he clearly left a lot of people in the lurch. But I think his is more of a political protest for what the National Security Agency was doing to them. But I'm not going to go into that right now. Okay, so now let's go to the second type, which includes solid state storage and hard drive storage. Well, the first problem with this is hard drives have mechanical parts. Okay, they have motors, they have circuit boards, they have all kinds of ins and outs, technology inside the drive that can go bad. A couple times in this episode we've talked about electrolytic capacitors. They certainly have those in circuit boards, even for these models. And they tend to, they take a lot of space. I just realized this morning when I was talking to Lemmy we were going through these topics before. Yes, the removable hard drive idea sounds great in theory, but in practice it's not necessarily so great because computer technology has changed a lot even in the last 10 years. We went from using, in 10 years alone, we went from things like USB 2.0 to USB 3.0, and FireWire to SATA and NAS and SAS and all kinds of formats. But what happens if, say, in 10 years, 20 years down the road, when you need to restore your backup from your hard drive, there's no longer an interface on your computer that drive can plug into? Then you're SOL because there's no way to recover the data that you backed up in the hard drive. But what if the hard drive, the lubricant, and the motor has already gunked up, or the bearings have frozen up? You can't even get the motor to turn over. So even if you could find the connection port for your computer that plugs into your drive, the drive still won't start because it's seized up. Okay, so then you're screwed. Or what happens if you find out the circuit board has failed? There's not much you can do there either, is there? I mean, after all, you're totally screwed if the circuit board goes bad. Well, so what's the deal? Okay, so obviously, also of course, because this is a mechanical hard drive, how about the hard drive side of it, is the heads can crash, the surface material can come off. I think it was some Mac stores, or maybe it was some Seagates that had this problem, right? With the coating of the platters started to peel off, which resulted in some obvious drive damage. You couldn't read the disk because the iron oxide material was clearly sticking to something else. So now when we talk about solid state storage devices, SSDs, you think, wow, here's something that's to be nice. I don't have to worry about magnetics getting to it. That's true. I don't have to worry about every day, carrying the drive around in a suitcase being damaging it. That's true too. But unfortunately, there's questions about if after 10 years, if the solid state storage devices will hold their information because they are charged to held by charge, being stored in these SSD units. So if that charge discharges, in other words, all your zeros turn into ones, it ain't gonna do you any good is you can't read the data back. Because unlike a hard drive, which has platters and heads and sectors, you can't bring it to drive savers and pull the data off the cartridge. It's gone. Okay, it's scrambled. Because the way SSDs work, flash memory works, you're not going to be able to recover it. Okay, it's gone. Now, third type, very popular: Blu-rays, DVD media, CD media. In other words, all optical types. The problem is that the user consumable recordable media uses a dye. That is how we indicate ones and zeros, is by pigmentation in the dye, which affects the way the laser reads it. The problem is we learned this from working with movie film, is after a few years, if especially improperly treated, the dyes start to change, they start to degrade. And what happens then is the CDRW drive or a CDR or a DVD or whatever may not be readable anymore. So you see, the problem is that so for long-term storage, also don't forget the discs themselves. Even if the dye substrate doesn't peel off, the polycarbonate surface of the disc can get scratched, can get scuffed, can get, and depending on how you're storing it, you're lucky enough it might be okay, but maybe not. Okay. The other thing is the plastic can turn cloudy, which is just as bad, because if the plastic starts to go cloudy, it's just getting cataracts in my eye. In your eye, I'm just starting to get cataracts in my right eye. So I'm speaking from experience here. It doesn't matter how good your substrate is, if the laser can't get through the cloudiness of the media, it ain't gonna be able to read it. So you're screwed. And then of course you're assuming that the drive technology may be there to read the media. I think that's less of a problem than with the hard drives, but I think that's certainly a consideration, that the hardware may not be present. Which leaves us with, actually, I'm going to one more. Actually, I can put two, but we'll talk about that third, the sixth one in a second. Tape. Now, I have tapes in my collection. I'm talking about musical tapes as well as I have some computer tapes. Okay, so when I have friends who have 8-track tapes. I'm talking about the musical kind. And I got some reel-to-reel tapes that are also the musical kind. And I got 2 computer tapes in Cary Hill Alley. They're digital kind. I have not gotten the drive yet to read the digital ones, but let's talk about the general nature of tape. The problem with sometimes with tape is that just like some CD materials, depending on the bending agent is, they start to flake a little bit, or the tape can stretch. But I have a friend that has 8-track tapes that are 40 years old, and he still plays them. He still enjoys them every day. So I'd say, and I have reel-to-reel tapes that are same conditions. I would say that the tape is more likely going to last longer, given the history of both computer and analog tape. That the drives and the media will probably at least be around a long time. Oh, that's one thing I wish I could put them back up. With all the interruptions. Don't call me until I'm done, okay? Alright. That's what I was trying to get at. Okay, so the problem when, as I said, tapes have been demonstrated, both analog and our digital tapes have a long shelf life. And the same is true with videotapes. Even though after a while they start to degrade, there's a lot of VHS videotapes from the 80s that are still out there, and they're still being played. Okay, and they're still being collected by, older technology enthusiasts. I'm not saying that all these tapes are always in pristine condition, but 30, 40-year-old tapes are not going to look like, like they just came off the showroom floor. But on the other hand, videotapes clearly are still quite playable, and in many cases. Now, what is the fifth type of backup? Good old-fashioned paper. I think that's a good point as any. We human beings have always constantly talked about getting away from the paperless, going to the paperless office. Paper, as much as we human beings like to think we have gone away from a paper society, we still depend on this stuff to do so many things. And the problem is as long as we are needing paper will last. This piece of paper, like I said, will last me even long after I'm dead. We have documents in the National Archives, such as Library of Congress, that are old, that are still with us to this day. Granted, they have to be treated with special care, but then there are also books and things in libraries that, as long as they were printed on acid-free paper, will still be with us. Now, okay, smarty pants. Now, what am I supposed to do to back up my 600 gigabytes of data? Print it on paper? Obviously, that would be infeasible. The amount of printing to print something on paper would be astronomical. I would need to understand exactly what we're talking about here as far as space. How many kilobytes is a typical sheet of paper? Okay, assuming the page is full. Okay, 66 lines, 80 characters per inch. 80 characters to a line. Okay. How many kilobytes is that? That's right, kilobytes. Now remember, a gigabyte is 100,000 kilobytes. That's 100,000 sheets of paper. How many reams is that? Well, if you figure 500 sheets to a ream, and 10 reams is 5,000 sheets, 100 reams is 50,000. Okay, so now 1,000 reams, I can barely visualize that. It's about 500,000 sheets of paper. How much paper is that in volume? Well, just measure your typical size ream, which is about just say about 3 inches thick. Now, by 8.5 inches wide. Now, you can visualize it. Actually, I can't. It could easily fill, if it's side by side against the wall, 1,000 reams of paper would fill up almost one of my complete walls. That is only storing a subset of 600 gigabytes. That just tells you how much data I have amassed over the years. And then, of course, the other problem is too is that the data is not exactly in the format I can necessarily use either. Okay, it's great if you want to print recipe cards or things like that, but the truth is storing sheets of paper holding computer program binary dumps isn't going to do me any good. What am I going to do? Use a hex editor and enter all those codes back in and see if the program runs? Yeah, I suppose you could, but it's not very feasible. Okay, after all, one transcription error could turn that program into a piece of garbage. I remember back when I was a kid, I used to buy computer magazines and like Compute's Gazette, Run, Transactor. I was using my Commodore 64, and there would be program listings in there. And especially machine code ones were my favorite, because you had to type in all these hexadecimal numbers. And as you're typing in these hexadecimal digits, you start to see that it would be very easy, if you're half asleep, to get the letter B mixed up with the number 8, especially in computer listings. So if I say 0B08, I might think it says 0B0B or 80B or so on and so forth, so that it could be easily transpire wrong code, and obviously the program would be useless. So paper has a long life, but it's not very feasible for archival storage, maybe, but even then. So, okay, now let's talk about the different types of tape backup units, just so we understand where we go. Okay, we're talking about computer versions, not audio versions, but I guess one audio version was used for computer versions back in the 80s, and of course that's cassette tape. There are still some cassette tape programs still in the archive somewhere, or some computer museum or something. You might need to be able to keep those preserved for your demonstration computers. Some of those tapes have still been more than performing well, even nowadays. But we're talking about a high capacity storage medium, and there's three major ones that are still being. Of these three, one has really become the new standard, whereas it used to be the other one. The older standard was called DLT, or digital linear tape. It's not called digital linear tape because it's digital. It is digital. It was created by Digital Equipment Corporation. So in that case, it's digital because that's the name of the company that came up with the technology. Okay. Now, the DLT format was later purchased by Quantum, and it became Quantum's baby. Okay. DLT tape, unfortunately, was a wonderful recording medium. However, it's a little bit short on the capacity right now. Compared, I told you, 600 gigabytes. To back up 600 gigabytes on DLT, just keep it easy. No compression, standard 80 gigabyte. Okay, that's compression. Let's turn the compression off for now. 40 gigabytes native. Okay, 600 gigabytes means I'm going to take 15 tape cartridges of DLT format to back up my entire software collection. Not exactly the greatest news in the world, especially if the fact is DLT tapes. I don't know much about how well reliable the drive is, but the technology is falling away into disfavor because of its limitation of storage capacity for another company called Linear Tape Open. Okay, this is an open standard tape format. Okay, it's operated by a group of companies. Sometimes it's known as Ultram. Okay, this is open format, open source. Anybody can design a tape drive using the standards, and as long as it meets the requirements, it's okay. So it's not copyrighted like DLD is. This tape format allows technology. Now we're talking about LTO2 because that's the tape drive I'm looking into right now. LTO2 allows for native compression of 200 gigabytes to a cartridge. That's about a 3-inch by 3-inch cube. It's about 1 inch thick. Okay, the cartridges look like DLT cartridges, but they are not the same cartridge. They just look like it, but they're not the same. Okay, they work kind of the same too, but they don't. They're not the same enough. I can't take a DLT cartridge and toss it into an LTO drive and expect it to work. It won't. It won't. First of all, it won't fit. Second of all, the tape cartridges have a different way of bringing the tape into the machine, so that's where things get different. LTO2 tape is the example here we're going to use. It would take 3 cartridges to back up my computer versus 15 40 gigabyte DLTs versus about possibly 150 hours of cloud storage versus 302 gigabyte SLR QIC tape cartridges. That's a lot of cartridges. Your hands would be tired. Hands would be very tired. So that means it tells you something. That's how much data to visualize it. Oh yeah, did I forget how many sheets of paper that would take? Oh my God! Look at it this way. We get more data than we can actually store. So why don't we do like they do in Clean Sweep? Why don't we go ahead and have the equivalent of Nietzsche Nash come in here and go, I'm good, yeah. You're going into my collection of stuff? Good luck. Or hoarding buried alive. You're talking about, that's exactly what our computers look like. It's time to do that. It's time to clean house, baby. Seriously. But obviously, I'm buying some tapes. I'm buying the drive. And at least I'll be able to back up some of the smaller things, like the stuff that is important to me, like my creation works, like Ballad of the Snow Teen and some of my older writings, so I could have at least a couple copies of that around. I'm not going to be able to back up everything, so just gonna. So like Nietzsche Nash would say, it's time to clean house, girl. You got a good house. You got all this. You can't fit in a 4 gigabyte cartridge. You cannot fit every single last firecracker. It's just not going to fit. So you're going to have to prioritize. And there are things you're going to want to keep. And there are things you're going to want to just toss. Okay? Keep, toss, sell. Okay? It's just like the clean house has a tag sale. Keep, pile, toss pile, sell pile. Well, toss pile, you can rename it delete pile. Sell pile, giveaway pile because some things are not really worth selling. Unless, of course, it's something that you created that really think is worth money. And if it is, you probably already was sold it already. Um, that's the kind of mentality you gotta have with tape or disc or whatever. You got to clean out your hard drives. It doesn't matter, and you gotta back up what you got. And you'll be lucky and you'll be glad you saved your own bacon. Because one day your hard drive is going to crash. There are two kinds of computer users. I agree with this. I was told this some time ago. Those that will experience a catastrophic data failure, and those that have. And I have, unfortunately, faced a lot of catastrophic data failures in my time. So this is not new to me at all. I've lost plenty of things. I lost lots of files. I lost a whole apartment. And I was living in Cary Hill Alley in Willimantic. I lost everything. The only thing I have left from all my years in Cary Hill Alley is two QIC DC6250 data cartridges. That's all I got from Cary Hill. That's all I own. Nothing else. I don't even have clothes from that era. I don't even have, I have my record collection. That was the other archive I preserved. But the two tape cartridges are all I have. So, yes, they're like time capsules. They've been still sitting in the original boxes for 13 years. I want to see what's on them. It's time to open up those time capsule data puppies. Look at them. I want to see what's on them. I think the original Marcus World book is on there. The Marcus World book, that will be a video sometime to talk about if we do manage to get it recovered. It's very different than the Marcus World that you can get on our website now, which is, they also will be on our website. I will make sure to restore it and put it up there on the internet as well so you can see it. The original Marcus World is not the same as the Marcus World that we have now, which is a very different story. So, anyway, that's enough for now. I'll talk to you soon, and I hope you have a nice day, okay? Bye-bye, everybody.